Okay. Okay, we got it. All right. Okay. For a second there, I was worried we weren't going to get it. It was being very finicky. Hello, Peacock Pages. Hello, Gigi Kiki. Like, I was looking and it was fighting me. But we're here. Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds, and welcome to my book garden. Actually, welcome to my plushie garden, becoming my haunted plushie garden, bit by bit. I kind of got read for nerd by one of my coworkers, where you will notice my lovely skeletons over there. They literally went to a Menards, and or Michael's, and they texted me and they were like, I saw this and I thought of you, so I got it for you. And my other two coworkers that I work with, they got like little stained glass hearts that were like, make today a kind day. And they were like, it just didn't seem like your vibe. And I was like, I mean, thank you. And like, I don't mind it, but I kind of was like a little bit like, oh, you're not wrong. Like, I would still have been totally okay with, like, the little stained glass heart, but I was like, I'll use it. And yes, this is a totally great shirt. To anyone who doesn't know, this is a shirt from Kichter. So, Donmei Book Club. So I thought, well, we're doing a book club. Thank you, Truffle. And Chichi Kiki. And hello, Momar's Rover. Hello, everyone. But yes, so this is, I think, the third live stream for this one. Second, third, hang on, let me check. This is a second one. Okay, second live stream of the book 3 of Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. Ooh, you finally got to read Dinghai Fusheng Records. What'd you think of it, Truffle? And hello, Annika. How you doing today? I myself actually just got and actually read this weekend. My husband and I Sleep in a Coffin, and it was pretty funny. Definitely gave a bit of Scumvillain vibes to it, because it's got someone who's definitely got that millennial energy going on. But I enjoyed it. Apparently it's a 2-book series. I liked it. It's pretty lighthearted. It was a pretty easy read. It went fast. It's kind of sweet. Like, there's some moments, but I literally got it and then sat down and read it in a day. And I just was like, that was my day. I actually had a day to myself. I think it was Saturday, and just was like, I have been doing a lot of things otherwise in my life, been socializing a lot. I'm gonna take today for me. Like, I've been actually hanging out with people, which, like, it's good. I enjoy it, but also, like, me time. Like, I need my time in my nerd cave, which is oddly enough not this. But yes. And I agree, short Donmeis are definitely very nice when you just want something there and back. I also have Astrolabe, whatever that one is. Like, it is in my backpack for work. I don't know if I'll ever actually have time to read it at work, because a lot of it's just bing, bang, boom. But it's there for when I have the potential chance. Oh, yeah. I forgot to do the actual intro to this. I just got right into talking. I'm Rosebud Reads, and I'm so excited that you're here. I am not sponsored by 7Cs or anything else. If anyone wants to sponsor me, like, I wouldn't be opposed. I'm not sure what comes with that, honestly. Let's see. I am really excited. I think I got another follower recently because we are up to 95, which, if you remember, I said we will be doing something special when we get to 100 subscribers, which is I will be doing the next live stream after we reach 100 in a cosplay of your choice out of 3. My Burial Mounds, Wei Wuxian, my Simp Lord, Hua Chang, and my Scum Villain, Shen Chu. So, it's creeping closer, and I'm really thankful and excited about that. So if you haven't already voted for which one you would like, you'll have to scroll down in posts a bit, but it's there, and you all get to choose it. But I thought for 100, I'd do something a little fun for everyone. So yeah. This is a chill stream, if you couldn't already tell. If that's not really your flavor, that's completely okay. It's not for everyone. But I will be talking to the chat. I will be talking to the book. I will be talking to myself. There might be some stream interruptions. I don't have the best internet. If that happens, let me know in the comments. I will respond as quickly as possible. And you might see me disappear for a bit, run upstairs, reset it, and it'll be all good. I will come back, I promise. Yes, the fic recommendations. I posted the new ones today already, and one of them, I think they're mostly kind of a little silly. The Modao Zushi one is a little more serious. Just a second. But yes. Yeah, the angst is definitely good in Erha. And yeah, so many of these series are so big. Okay. But the fanfic recommendations. So for Scum Villain, I picked one that's called To Know You Better by Immortal Zydra. And it's definitely more crack fic flavor to it, but it's based before the Peak Lord's ascension, so their masters' ascension to their formal positions, and is rather lighthearted, though there are implications about some potentially triggering things happening to a character. So if you're triggered by anything, be aware that's present. They talk about some pretty sensitive subjects. It's kind of brought up in a very lighthearted air, but it's there. The implication is definitely there. But it's mostly comedy. And it's kind of a little bit of a lighthearted one where the Peak Lords kind of come together with the actual OG Shenju, which I kind of like. You see a lot of fics where it's Shenyuan, where they come together, but this is kind of like the OG could get some more love, you know. And then the Modao Zushi one is a little more serious, but it still has a bit of that crackiness, and you can tell by the title, which is Don't Bore Us, Take Us to the Chorus by Marzenia. And it's complete, and it's very interesting. And I kind of even made the comment, I apparently have a love for calamities, especially those of the beautiful kind. Since this is a story about calamitous beauty, Wei Wuxian seeking a husband via trials after discovering that the most viable way to rebuild his core is with a man. Scandalous. So Momar's Rover about Erha. It's definitely intense. I enjoyed it, but I also had moments where I was like, ow. Definitely ow. And oh my god, as well as a little bit of confusion. There's a little bit of a convoluted plotline. I also read this before it was published. So it could have also been a translation error. But there's definitely some twisty-wisty timeline aspects / plotline aspects. So if you get a little confused, it's okay. After you read a book, watching the Kichter synopsises is not a bad idea if you are confused. Twisty-wisty, yes. So all the warnings and all the angst, yes. But yes, those are the fanfic picks that I picked out for this this stream. Yes. Kichter and Stitch. They both have a very nice way of kind of summarizing whatever you've read. So if you're reading it and life gets busy and you come back to it and then you finish it and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm forgetting things, like, it's always nice. Or even just if you read it in a day, they have a lot of funny things to say about it or a lot of points to think about. So, yeah. Ooh. Oh no, you reclaim your passwords. Oh, I hope everything went okay with that, Truffle, but I am very excited to hear that you started your Dolphin Fix-It fic. And Oh My OG? I don't know what the Oh My OG is, but I'm very excited about the Dolphin one, Truffle. Yes, I do love Stitch's PowerPoints. But yeah. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else I really have to talk about. I went and saw Jaws in IMAX on Labor Day. Oh, it bricked up over the weekend. Oh no. I'm so sorry to hear that, Truffle. That's awful. Yes, a good down May flow chart. I agree, Annika. I hope you get that figured out. Because computer issues suck. No. What is Oh My OG? Is it anime? Is it a book? What is it? Is it a game? Oh, there's my reminder to turn off my ringtone. Surprised I have my ringtone on. Oh well. But yeah, went to that. That was a big thing. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. We are just about at 14 minutes. We have the sob count at 4. We have the yeet count at 2, and this is just for book 3. Oh, when you don't have password stuff, it's awful. All right, so I'm going to give it 14:30 of when we're starting. Because that's probably where it's going to be by the time I actually start the summary. So last time I ended it on kind of a very interesting point, aka Li Yu just found out that he was pregnant, and because he kind of said accept all for the system's notifications, like he just said everything is yes, and so he accepted not only do you want to get pregnant, but also what form. And since he said yes, the first option was fish. And then now he's kind of freaking out. I think it was yes. So do you want to get pregnant? Then do you want to please select the form you would like to complete this mission in fish? Yeah. And then so the system was basically like, it'll work out. you accepted this, and now he's at the point of he's staring up at his husband as a fish, and his husband's like, what's wrong? You've been hiding out. And Liu says, sob, help, I just wanted to do it. I didn't want to give birth. And so now he hasn't told Prince Jing yet. He's literally just found out. So that's where we ended. So now we start. I should bring this up here so you can actually hear me better. I put my microphone back because I was using my computer this weekend. Whoops. And okay. Oh my OG. Okay, I'll have to look that up, Truffle. Okay, chapter 83. The Fate of a Fish. Lee was unhappy and didn't want to move, but it wasn't because of his skewering anymore. Oh yeah, he was really sore after they absorbed and gave essence last time. His fish form really was fast at recovering. Before very long, the dull pain he had felt had abated quite a lot, and he could now swim around freely. His true reason for languishing was because he couldn't accept his fate of giving birth. And he had to do it as a fish. He'd seen fish give birth before transmigrating. Was he going to lay a bunch of eggs? A sob. It was a little too scary. And that's a sob. Hang on. We are at 5 sobs by part 2 of book 3. All right. He was a boy who had just lost his virginity. He hadn't even lost it many times yet, and he already had to give birth. God, no. The system had scammed him way too hard. That's a very valid sob. That's very fair. The fish was down in the dumps, his spirits low. He was so put off by the specter of pregnancy that he didn't seem at all like a coy little fish who had just had his first time. Prince Jing could sense the fish's dejection and put aside his work to spend time with him. As soon as the fish made any sort of movement, Prince Jing was at his beck and call. Eating the red fish food Prince Jing had gave him, the tiny bits of resentment Liu felt towards him disappeared. Never mind. It's not like Prince Jing knew he would get pregnant. He couldn't have possibly predicted that himself, so how could he blame the prince? Prince Jing had always respected him and kept himself in check. Between the two of them, Liu had been the one who desperately wanted to do it. Prince Jing was just giving him what he wanted. Oh, he also wanted it. Don't you be fooled. If it wasn't for the sudden pregnancy, they'd both be doing great. He was avoiding Prince Jing, but the prince still took such good care of him. Liu felt a little guilty. First time blues. The system was so cold. Only his boyfriend's embrace was warm. The fish, who had been avoiding Prince Jing for less than a second, started warming up to him again. Prince Jing didn't know what the fish was thinking. He tried to rub him a bit, and while Liu enjoyed the attention, he was also unconsciously protective of his belly. Sob, it was just because he was afraid his boyfriend would notice what had happened. All right, number 2. Okay. In order to please the fish, as well as to show his happiness, Prince Jing had ordered a new stone rocking chair and placed it in the tank. As soon as Liu saw that there was a new toy, he couldn't contain his fishy instincts, and he immediately went to rock on it for a while. Soon, though, he realized something wasn't right. No, he shouldn't be playing. Liu hurriedly swam away from the rocking chair. A pregnant fish couldn't do such vigorous activities. Right? Lots of sobbing this evening. I mean, I don't blame him. He's a man, and I don't think he ever expected to become pregnant. He knew almost nothing about human pregnancies, and he knew even less when it came to fish. What was he going to do? He wanted to rub his tummy, but his fins weren't long enough. It wasn't fair. Should he tell Prince Jing? But being a carp spirit was already absurd in its own way. Would Prince Jing accept his sudden pregnancy? Yeah, I also like that he is already protective of his fish babies. Like, even though he's clearly confused and upset, he still is like, my babies. What was he pregnant with? He didn't know. How long would he be pregnant? He also didn't know. He couldn't even produce any evidence. Right? Prince Jing will be over the moon. Would Prince Jing believe him? Would he think he was joking again? Why had he said he was pregnant before? Did he have nothing better to do? It seemed that when the boy cried wolf too much, he really would suffer the consequences. Perhaps he should wait until his tummy grew larger. Liu rolled around, frustrated. He couldn't make a decision. He considered many options, but not once did he consider getting rid of the life inside of him. Liu knew almost nothing about pregnancies, but he knew at least one thing. This was a little life that he and his beloved created together. Although he hated that the system had scammed him, he just couldn't muster any hatred towards this little life. See, that's why I like Liu. He's like, I'm upset about the situation, but the baby is innocent in this. Like, I'm not mad at the baby. The baby didn't do anything. If they were blameless, then what about this life? Liu sighed. His heart softened so much whenever he thought about this future child. He was probably going to have to keep it. He literally comes to terms with things so fast. Turned into a fish, empreg, etc. And he really is so good and so pure. Like, he's a bit simple, but that's not a bad thing. Like, he has simple wants like food, like comfort, Prince Jing, his Prince Jing to be safe. Like, he isn't really all that greedy except for food. Like, he unknowingly is sleeping on treasure. Like, and I mean, he's not scorning it, but like, he's also just happy to be Prince Jing's fish for the most part, and then like be with Prince Jing once they got there. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing, honestly. Like, the only reason he's pushing for Prince Jing to be emperor is, one, the quests, but also like, so we'll be safe, so nobody can mess with him. Not for the power. Same thing for Prince Jing. Like, the only reason he really started going for emperor is so that he and Liu would be safe. Yes, his was able to transform again. Liu didn't rush to turn into a human to get intimate with his boyfriend. His fish belly was a little bloated. He didn't know if it was because he'd eaten too much or because he was pregnant. He was worried that if he turned into a human, his belly would be huge. And the Yi family. That's true. And the Yi family. But if he didn't transform, Prince Jing would be confused. They had just gone through a momentous once-in-a-lifetime occasion, and Prince Jing was expecting kissing, cuddling, and hugs. But he received nothing. The carp spirit who had sworn an oath with him didn't even want to speak to him. That's right, they basically had like an informal wedding ceremony yesterday as well. Prince Jing didn't want to accept that he was being rejected after having his essence absorbed for the first time. The very first time. Was it a skill issue? But apart from not transforming, the fish seemed fine. He still ate and slept, and Prince Jing couldn't see anything wrong. If his fish refused to transform, there was nothing he could do about it. He could only stay silently by the fish's side until he changed his mind. Again and again, Liu felt like Prince Jing was trying to suck his soul out with his eyes. He missed his deeply affectionate boyfriend. Sob, sob, sob. He had a baby in his belly now, so he didn't dare. Alright. Next. Liu pretended not to notice for a few days, but at last it was too much. He couldn't do it anymore. When he found the right time, he transformed. They both really are so good, yeah. Once he'd transformed, he didn't rush to get dressed. First, he looked down at his stomach. Still flat. He patted it, unconvinced, but it continued to be flat. Thank goodness. He really had been worried that after he transformed into a human, he'd have a huge pregnant stomach. Prince Jing had been keeping watch over him the entire time, but he had left for a little bit just now. When he came back, he suddenly ran into Xiao Yu in his human form, staring at his belly. Why wouldn't he see him? Why had he been hiding? Prince Jing walked over to Liu quietly, with infinite questions in his heart. But he was also afraid of scaring Xiao Yu. As he hesitated, Liu finished examining his stomach and suddenly spotted the person behind him. Liu was easily caught and found himself pushed up against a folding screen, his lips trapped against Prince Jing's. Prince Jing wasn't mad at him, but he felt the need to assert his dominance. I also just had the realization that this is happening when Liu is buck naked. So he's just standing there, kind of patting his tummy. Buck naked, Prince Jing walks in, and now they're kissing in front of the mirror. And that's kind of a funny image to me. Liu had missed him deeply. Although they were together every day, it was different when he was a fish. Now that he had tasted ultimate joy, peaceful coexistence seemed to be missing a little something. Surrounded by warmth, Liu immediately let down his guard. As Prince Jing lavished him with affection, Liu thought vaguely, it'd be fine if it was just a few kisses, right? He knew how Prince Jing had been these last few days. He'd been able to feel his unease. He wanted to respond just as enthusiastically. He didn't want the prince to think there was any chance he disliked any of it. In the afterglow, Liu, whose brain was finally returning to him, he felt a wash of belated regret. Another one and done. It was so over. He could control his human transformation, but he couldn't control the passion he felt towards Prince Jing. If this kind of thing happened once, then it would happen again, and again, and again. And besides, his boyfriend had just fallen in love. He was full of energy and drive. It was completely normal for him to want to absorb essence at the drop of a hat. If Liu was pregnant after this, he'd just have to accept it. He couldn't get pregnant every time, right? Since this had to do with his future happiness and possible children, Liu felt obligated to go talk to the system. The system said, after one and done is activated, it will disappear. The user's fertility rate will return to normal. That was better. He'd just gotten unlucky the first time and had to get pregnant. Actually, it wasn't better. He didn't even want children. Why had the system been so persistent about this? In response, the system showed Liu a vision. In the vision, Prince Jing was a lot older. He was wearing the emperor's robe, sitting all alone on the throne. What was this? Liu's heart jumped inside his chest. He didn't like this feeling. The system didn't explain anything. Continuing to watch, Liu saw Chu Yanyu walk out wearing a set of imperial robes. Prince Jing had stopped paying Chu Yanyu any attention a long time ago. Why would he... Wait. A thought flashed in Liu's mind. Why did it seem like Prince Jing and Chu Yanyu had aged several years? This was a middle-aged Prince Jing and Chu Yanyu. It was... Liu immediately realized that this must be the end of the original book, when Prince Jing was around 40 years old. Chu Yanyu, whose life was nearly half over, had finally started falling for Prince Jing. Liu watched as Imperial Noble Consort Chu talked cheerfully by himself, but Prince Jing remained emotionless on the throne. The original book hadn't gone into detail about the end of their relationship, but the system had shown him. In the end, Prince Jing no longer cared for Chu Yanyu and had become a complete, cold-hearted tyrant. Although he knew his boyfriend wouldn't meet the same end, Liu couldn't help the pang in his heart. But why had the system shown him this? The scene changed. Liu saw a few young princes bowing in greeting to Prince Jing wearing emperor robes. He was shocked. So Prince Jing had children in the original book. After all, the person Prince Jing was willing to give up having children for had no qualms about acquiring concubines for him to solve the issue. Realizing that Chu Yanyu wasn't worth his affection, Prince Jing had grown to no longer love him. He was just completing his duty as an emperor. The tyrant possesses the protagonist halo, which means he must have children, the system said. But because of the user, he will be prevented from having them unless the user is the one to provide them. This was even more shocking than when he found out he was pregnant. It was all because of him. The system spoke vaguely, so it took Liu a moment to understand. Was the system saying Prince Jing was ready to give up on children because of him? Honestly, he'd known the answer to this question for a while. When he had pretended to be pregnant, Prince Jing was delighted. But after he found out Liu was just pretending, while Prince Jing was disappointed, he had never blamed him. Children and heirs were very important in ancient times. It wasn't something to joke about. Oop, hang on. I've got, something, in my eye. I think I got it. Ugh. But Prince Jing held him in higher regard than the promise of heirs and had agreed to never take on any concubines. Then, what about Liu? Liu admitted that he was moved by Prince Jing's actions, but regardless, he was still afraid of giving birth. He lowered his head. Let me think about it. He almost exited out of the system, but that vision from the original story reminded him that he hadn't claimed the reward for the last quest. It was, as usual, another one of Prince Jing's secrets. He might as well claim it. Looking at the 4 options, he wanted to know exactly how important he was to Prince Jing, so for the first time, he chose the option that involved himself. He saw the scene where he'd helped Prince Jing clean his eyes at Jingtai Hall. Huh? Liu couldn't figure out why he was being shown this until he saw Prince Jing noticing a fish scale on the fabric he had dropped. Prince Jing asked Yi Qinghuan if he had taken care of a Yao before. Holy shit, how did I miss something so important? Prince Jing had known since then? These two really are so healthy. It's rare a couple is portrayed as having problems but still acting so good to each other. Amen to that, Momar's Rover. Understanding dawned on him. Details that he'd thought were odd before suddenly made sense. Prince Jing always gave him gifts that involved fish. Liu had assumed it was just because he had fish in his name, but it was actually because Prince Jing had known the entire time that he was his pet fish. He had done so much for Liu without his knowledge, helping him take care of the situation when he'd broken out of the crystal bottle for a moment of satisfaction, covering for him in front of everyone so his identity would remain hidden, turning the entire manor into a fish tank. Even Liu had been jealous of Prince Jing's fish before. But it had been all for him all along. Liu's heart felt heavy. He didn't know if he wanted to laugh or cry. Yeah, they really do put in a lot of effort trying to understand each other. That's very true. He thought he had done a lot, but in the end, he was the one being taken care of, the one being loved. He was moved by this love, and he already felt soft and fuzzy on the inside. But so what? A system? Liu asked, sniffling. Does it hurt to give birth as a fish? Liu exited from the system, feeling refreshed. It should be in him already. Since the system had said it wouldn't hurt, he'd go through with it. When he'd had no idea what was going to happen, everything felt wrong. But now that he'd thought it through and calmed down, he wanted to know what kind of children he would have. The system said that this was the beginning of these small new lives and of the fate between him and the Tyrant. Weeks 1 and 2, his human stomach remained flat, and as a fish, there wasn't much of a change either. One day, during the 3rd week, Liu suddenly noticed that he no longer fit in the ornamental mountain. Every day, when he thought there was nothing left to look at, his stomach would visibly grow a little bit more. Prince Jing felt like the fish had gotten somewhat fatter. Had he been eating too much every day? I'm not! I haven't! Liu complained. Stop randomly touching my stomach. He's offended. He's like, I am not getting fat. How dare! How dare! My nose is itchy, sorry. Chapter 84. Fishy Pregnancy. No matter whether it was happening to a fish or a human, male pregnancy was completely absurd. Liu had even specifically clarified before that he couldn't get pregnant. He'd inadvertently shot himself in the foot. It was too humiliating. He hadn't figured out how he was going to tell Prince Jing. But he assumed fish pregnancies lasted approximately 9 months, just like humans. At the very least, it would definitely be a few months away. He didn't need to rush and could take his time coming up with a plan. In human form, his stomach started to change ever so slightly. Compared to his fish form, it wasn't obvious. Because he didn't like to use jade belts and always just wore a length of silk or string or beads tied casually around his waist. It was fine, even if he kept his robes a little looser. But Liu was worried Prince Jing would notice eventually, so he asked Prince Jing for maternity leave, saying he needed to focus on his cultivation for a few months and couldn't turn back into a human. Prince Jing stared at him questioningly. He could tell this fish was hiding something. But Liu made up some excuse and managed to avoid answering. Prince Jing felt like after they'd become one, there still was always something to be separating them. But no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't figure out what it was. He had always spoiled this fish. If Fish wanted focus on his cultivation, then Prince Jing would not deny him. He wasn't afraid of spending time apart temporarily, but he was afraid that when the carp spirit finished going through his tribulation, he would leave. Prince Jing had worried about this ever since Liu had come clean about his identity. And now, due to his need to hide his stomach, Liu was constantly avoiding him. Unknowingly, he had added to Prince Jing's fears. Xiao Yu must be hiding something that he doesn't want him to know, Prince Jing thought. In the past, he used to pretend he'd never seen through the fish, always silently protecting him, so there was no reason for that to change. As long as the fish stayed in the tank by his side, somewhere that he could see him every day, Prince Jing could accept it. In the 4th week of his fish pregnancy, Liu felt his entire body growing sluggish. He didn't want to move at all. He told Prince Jing he'd be cultivating, and occasionally he'd make a couple of moves to keep up the appearance. But he got tired quickly when he swam, and using his brain was even more exhausting. And maybe he should just lay down and try again tomorrow. Liu thought this every time he was wrapped in his fish blanket just before falling asleep. But each day he woke up, he still felt the same. There was nothing wrong aside from that. One night, just as he was resigning himself to remaining in this state for several more months, Liu suddenly awoke to his stomach feeling a little heavy and bloated. Liu got up in a hurry and glanced at his stomach. The view shocked him deeply. His stomach had shrunk. No way! He hurriedly looked below the rock bed, but the bottom of the fish tank hadn't changed. He searched all the corners and still couldn't find anything. Oh my goodness, flashbacks to pregnancy for me. The fatigue was brutal. Oh, I can only imagine Peacock Pages. I have a lot of respect for any pregnant women and everything that they go through and deal with. Like, the human body is fantastic, but like the stress that pregnancy puts on the human body is a lot. I could not even imagine morning sickness. I have stomach issues, and that already puts me on my butt. So being sick literally every day would be absolutely awful. So power to you, Peacock Pages. Mad respect to you for constantly having to swim. Yeah. He hurriedly looked below the rock bed, but the bottom of the fish tank hadn't changed. He searched all the corners and still couldn't find anything. Then he remembered. Nudging away the gold-embroidered blanket on the silver rock bed, he found 4 round, glowing white beads, each around the size of a thumb. He couldn't have possibly laid these, right? No, he must have. Otherwise, why did his stomach shrink so much? The fish scamming system had finally decided not to scam him for once. He hadn't expected it to be this easy. Laying eggs as a fish was actually pretty painless. It only took 4 weeks, and it happened while he was asleep. These things that looked like beads were probably roe. Liu no longer felt sleepy or lazy. He swam over carefully and poked one egg gently with a fin, then stared closely at it. Of course, there was nothing to see. He still hadn't thought about how to tell Prince Jing, and now he'd already given birth, and he'd laid not 1, but 4 eggs. That was even more awkward. Could Prince Jing accept that his kids were 4 small orbs? This was going to be difficult. They might even float away while he wasn't looking. Then again, laying eggs was what fish did. The tiny merman or tiny human that Liu had originally been hoping for was impossible, but although fish eggs were a little disappointing, they were still his and Prince Jing's children. Liu didn't mind. How was he going to take care of them now that he'd laid them, though? They won't be orbs forever. That's right, Truffle. Liu didn't know what to do. After circling his egg children a couple of times, he suddenly remembered that he had the system. Liu wrapped the 4 eggs snugly back in the blanket and entered the system. The system was already prepared with a notification. Congratulations, user, for completing the Spread Your Seed quest. The main quest line, Revitalize the Family, is now finished. Please accept your award. Liu didn't have time to celebrate completing another quest line. He didn't even have time to look at the reward. He hurriedly asked, What do I do with the fish eggs? The side quest, Growing Up, has been unlocked, the system told him. Please select whether you'd like to proceed. This quest clearly had to do with child rearing. Of course he had to start it. Besides, this quest made it sound like the fish eggs could grow into humans. That would be the best case scenario. The fish eggs will hatch after 4 or 5 days of incubation. Please protect them. After you have fed them for 9 months, they can complete their own quests and become human. Seriously? Why did the little Xiao Yus have to do quests too? Were the fish born from a system fish also system fish? Leo was almost impressed. The fish scamming system sure was unbelievable, going so far as setting something like this up. Made him pretty worried, though, when he thought about the quests he'd completed. The little Xiao Yus were so tiny, and they had to worry about quests just like he did. The system could read Liu's thoughts and helpfully added, "User, don't worry. They will be very ordinary, simple tasks. They're usually completed without any issue." Fine. I'll trust you for now. He had no other choice. After learning about taking care of the eggs and young hatchlings, Liu exited the system and stealthily peered around. No one had noticed that he'd secretly laid 4 round fish eggs. Incubating them over the next 4 days should be easy enough. The system had told him he had to choose whether somewhere quiet to incubate the eggs. The warmer, the better. It hadn't told him he had to incubate them himself, but Liu had seen birds do that. They usually sat on their eggs, keeping them warm with their feathers. Liu thought that made sense, and fish eggs were probably similar. He didn't have feathers, but he did have scales, so he decided to do the same. Protective Liu is the best Liu. Yes. He arranged the 4 round eggs in a small circle, laying on top of them to cover them completely, then draped the blanket over himself. It should be very warm. From a distance, you couldn't even tell he was incubating eggs. Prince Jing never let him go hungry, so he didn't even have to worry about food. If someone came to change the water, he'd temporarily hide the eggs in the cave of the ornamental mountain. 4 days passed just like this. It was all quite easy. When these round little balls became children, he wouldn't be able to keep it a secret anymore. It would be easier to explain then as well. He could just show Prince Jing directly that he'd given birth to 4 kids and how many of them were girls or boys, instead of confusing him trying to guess as what exactly was in his fish belly. Liu had never been so focused, concentrating entirely on his eggs. Gradually, he forgot about everything around him. Prince Jing noticed that Xiao Yu hadn't been moving much lately. Xiao Yu had warned him ahead of time, so he hadn't asked anyone to come take a look in case he disturbed Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu still swam a little bit every day at first, but recently he'd mostly just been sleeping and eating. His stomach seemed to have grown a bit bigger. Perhaps because he was busy cultivating, he didn't move much. Prince Jing didn't consider any other possibilities, nor could he ask about the fish's cultivation. He just made sure to pay particular attention to Xiao Yu. It was fine if he didn't want to move much, but the fish seemed to get worse. He was always wrapped in the blanket and wouldn't get off the bed. He wouldn't even move when it was time to eat, only eating the few pieces that drifted to the silver rock bed. Prince Jing was incredibly worried. Desperate times, he decided, called for desperate measures. Prince Jing lifted the blanket, wanting to take the fish out and take a good look, and in doing so startled Liu, who was busy incubating his eggs. What was going on? Liu desperately held on to the silver rock bed with his fins, making it clear he did not want to leave this bed. Prince Jing paused. The fish was clearly unhappy, so he had to change his tactics. He couldn't just pull him out by force. Just then, Wang Shi arrived with something to report. Prince Jing turned to listen, and Liu took the chance to grab each of the round eggs with his mouth and hide them in the cave. Wang Shi didn't stay for long. When Prince Jing turned around, he saw that the fish who refused to leave his bed just a second ago had now slid off the bed and was waiting obediently by his hand. Prince Jing smiled, petting the fish's head. Liu rubbed his mouth against his palm. Prince Jing remembered that this fish had always really liked to take walks. Afraid that he was bored in the tank, Prince Jing took out the crystal bottle, ready to take Xiao Yu out for a change of scenery. Oh no. Liu liked being alone together, but he was still incubating his eggs. What if he couldn't get back soon? What if they decided to go for another round? What about his fish babies? Liu was torn between his husband and his children. Making up his mind, he thought, Your Highness, I'm sorry. In the past, Liu had always jumped into the bottle himself. This time, he refused to do it. Prince Jing brought the fish to the mouth of the bottle, but Liu turned around with a swish of his tail and fell back into the tank. He paddled his fins and blew some bubbles. Your Highness, go on a walk for me. Prince Jing didn't know what to do with this fish. He pet Xiao Yu fondly. If he didn't want to go this time, there was always next time. Now that Prince Jing was stationed here at the western border, he was in charge of all the military and political business. Soon, he had something he needed to take care of and left. Liu let out a sigh of relief. Once he was sure Prince Jing had left and he could no longer hear any footsteps, he took the eggs out of the cave again. It was too much of a hassle to carry each egg by itself, so Liu came up with an easier way. He grabbed one with his mouth and put the other 3 on his back. Like this, he swam slowly back to the silver rock bed. He had only just reached the bed when Prince Jing returned. He stood before the fish tank silently. Liu was shocked at his sudden reappearance. Was this a surprise attack? Liu rushed to cover the eggs with the blanket, but forgot that there was still one in his mouth. Prince Jing couldn't see what was hidden under the blanket, but when the fish opened his mouth, something rolled out, and he managed to get a good look at it. This was... Prince Jing didn't recognize what Xiao Yu was hiding, but his expression didn't show it. Liu saw that Prince Jing was completely calmed and assumed he had figured it out. Now he had no choice but to come clean. Liu transformed, then moved the blanket away. Prince Jing saw the 3 other round things. Face red, Liu said, Your Highness, there are 4 fish eggs in total. The first thing that Prince Jing registered from Liu's words was that these were fish eggs. He tried to figure out how fish eggs had appeared in his fish tank. Liu looked at him nervously. If I tell you I laid them, he said tentatively, would you believe me? Prince Jing felt his eyebrow twitch as he looked at Liu. Your Highness, these are the eggs I laid, Liu repeated shyly. Sorry I told you I couldn't have children before. I only found out recently that I'm a fish that can give birth. Prince Jing felt like his entire world had exploded in a flash of lightning. Slowly, carefully, he contemplated Liu's words. So Xiao Yu could give birth. So Xiao Yu had laid 4 eggs. So... He knew that fish eggs became the children of fish, which meant that this was... Prince Jing suddenly felt dizzy. These were his and Xiao Yu's children! Looking at Prince Jing's expression, Liu could see the information was huge shock even to someone as calm as Prince Jing. Liu figured he'd already had to tell Prince Jing all this, he might as well explain the rest of it too, and shakily informed him of his plan to raise the fish babies. Apparently, their children had to be incubated. That's what Xiao Yu had been hiding from him. Prince Jing's gaze was warm as he looked at Xiao Yu, who was standing before him. I won't let you be too tired. Let me help, he said with a determined gaze that left no room for argument. I love that he wants to help with this when it's like a part of nature, like incubating the eggs, and he's like, I'm going to help you. Chapter 85, The Fish and His Young. Leo could tell Prince Jing wanted to help. He laughed. What can you help me with, Your Highness? He teased him. It's actually not hard. I can do it myself. He'd already done the hardest, most unbelievable part, giving birth. Now he just had to quietly incubate the eggs. Easy. Prince Jing pursed his lips before shaking his head lightly. Prince Jing is definitely trying to be a good dad. He is showing he is going to be the best dad. Prince Jing pursed his lips before shaking his head lightly. He asked Liu to repeat the instructions, then reached into the water with one hand to hold the eggs. They were still tiny. An adult could easily fit all four in the palm of their hand. Prince Jing maintained this position unmoving. After a while, he very carefully switched to the other hand, keeping the eggs underwater. When he took his hand out, it had already gone a little pale from soaking in the water too long. He wrapped it in a towel, then switched to the other hand. Rinse and repeat. Literally, rinse and repeat. Liu didn't understand what he was doing at first, but after Prince Jing had repeated the action several times, Liu let out a soft exclamation. He got it. Prince Jing was using the warmth from his palms to help warm the eggs. Not only was he willing to believe everything he said, he was even willing to help him incubate the eggs. How could there be such a caring person in the world? Liu was overwhelmed with emotion. I mean, I would be too if I was in this situation for a multitude of reasons. But, yeah. Prince Jing smiled at him, not at all angry or upset, and glanced at the empty chair next to him. You're tired. Rest. Your Highness! Liu threw himself forward, but he didn't sit down in the chair. Instead, he landed on Prince Jing's back and latched onto him tightly. Prince Jing was knocked forward slightly by the force and rushed to protect the eggs in his hand. He wanted to hold Liu with his other hand, but it hadn't quite warmed up yet and was still a little cold. I mean, you could still hold him with that hand. He could help you warm it up. Prince Jing always carried himself with calm confidence, but he was starting to get flustered. Your Highness, it's okay. You're the best. Liu pressed his face against Prince Jing's broad back and rubbed against it comfortably, wiping away the slight moisture gathered at the corners of his eyes. Ever since he'd found out he was pregnant, then laid the eggs and started incubating them, he'd endured a lot of fear and misery. But when he saw the joyous smile blooming on Prince Jing's face, Liu felt himself smile as well. He suddenly felt like none of this was a big deal. No matter if he was human or a carp spirit, whether or not he could have children, whatever he gave birth to, Prince Jing always believed him. He was Liu's safe harbor. Aww. Liu ignored the empty chair and squeezed into Prince Jing's lap instead. Prince Jing let him sit right down, giving him a kiss. They are just too cute, Mars Rover. Prince Jing let him sit right down, giving him a kiss. Then he wrapped an arm around him, all the while keeping a hand cupped around the fish eggs. Prince Jing once again encouraged Liu to sleep on his shoulder with a look that said, Rest. Your Highness, I'm not tired, really, Liu hurried to reply. He hadn't even been incubating the eggs for 2 hours total, and he'd been lying down on the bed the whole time. He wasn't tired at all. Besides, he was already sitting in Prince Jing's lap. If he leaned back onto his shoulders, Prince Jing would be the one who'd get tired. But no matter how much he objected, Prince Jing insisted that he lean against him. In the end, Liu had to give up. He leaned against Prince Jing, watching as he incubated the eggs. When he changed hands, Liu would help him wipe his hands dry, then hug that hand to his chest to warm it up. See? You could share body heat. That'll work. The fish eggs had to be incubated for 4 days, so Prince Jing watched over them the entire time. If any urgent business came up, he'd ask the servants to leave it outside his door. Once they'd left, he would retrieve it and do all his work with one hand on the fish eggs before putting the paperwork back outside. Liu had collected his reward, doubling his transformation time. Now he could maintain his human form for 4 hours. He'd wanted to take turns with the eggs, but Prince Jing insisted he could do it alone. Liu urged him to rest, but only managed to get Prince Jing to take a brief 2-hour nap. When he woke up, he immediately went back to incubating the eggs. Prince Jing was so dedicated. Liu had gotten jealous of himself before. Now he felt jealous of the amount of attention Prince Jing paid to the eggs instead, which caused a lot of drama. Liu, who insisted he wanted to watch as the little eggs hatched, accidentally fell asleep on the 4th day. In the midst of his dream, something seemed to be tickling his face. Liu rubbed his eyes and sat up. Prince Jing was standing right in front of him. He had his hands held suspiciously behind his back, with a childlike smugness all over his face. Liu froze. Then, have they finally hatched? He asked ecstatically. Prince Jing nodded, then coughed lightly. Under Liu's eager gaze, he slowly brought his hands in front of him. He uncurled his fingers, and in his palms swam 4 young fish, each an inch long. Like that big. That's tiny. That's really tiny. Yeah. Liu yelled in excitement. Prince Jing placed the fish into his hands, letting him watch them swim around. Although he was their father, Liu could not tell the difference between the 4. The other father, however, insisted that all 4 fish looked like him. Get it together, Your Highness. How could fish look like a human? If we're going to brag about it, at least wait until they've changed into human babies. I love them so much. Prince Jing got out a tea bowl he had prepared for Liu and put the 4 babies inside. Although the fish tank was a little larger, he was afraid he wouldn't be able to find them again if he put them inside. I guess it's kind of like a baby carrier in that sense. Liu could now cancel his transformation whenever he wanted and change back into a fish. He narrowed his eyes playfully at Prince Jing. Being a fish wasn't completely bad. In an instant, he transformed and jumped into the tea bowl. Would his children recognize him? Could they speak? Liu started swimming towards them slowly. The little babies quickly noticed and swam to meet him. Liu rubbed his mouth affectionately against each of them. He was still very young. If he hadn't transmigrated as a fish, he might have never had this experience or learned how to interact with fish babies. But the moment he saw his fish babies, he knew he loved them. No matter if they were fish or human, he'd do anything to protect them. Probably closer to a playpen. You're right, Truffle. I was thinking yeah. I was thinking playpen, but then my brain just couldn't think of the words, so I was like, baby carrier, that works. I agree. The baby fish couldn't communicate yet, and they were nearly transparent with tiny little black dots for eyes. But they were quite lively as they swam around Liu. Liu had gotten information from the system on how to feed the baby fish in advance. Following his instructions, Prince Jing had wrapped a boiled egg yolk in cheesecloth, and now he shook it gently in the water, splashing a bit of soy milk in with it. 3 of the baby fish were immediately interested, fighting with each other to start eating. The last one was still swimming in circles around Liu, confused. After a gentle push from Liu, it tipped headfirst into the soy milk. I kind of wonder if that was the baby that was in his mouth that got dropped. Or just could have been whatever. Was that mean to say? I feel a little mean saying that now. Because he's such a sweetheart. Like, he really is such a sweetheart. Da Bao. That's okay. We love him anyway. Okay, good. I'm glad people thought it was funny because I was like, that was a little rude. Oops. Anyway, a notification came from the system. Congratulations, user. You are now in team mode. Your children, the baby fish, have joined your team. This was a thing. He could lead the baby fish to complete quests. He remembered that the system had said that the one and done skill was a one-time use only. In the future, his pregnancies would all be normal. But even so, he had given birth to 4 babies at once. Did that mean he'd end up having even more children later on? Once the babies grew up, they'd also have their own children. Perhaps he could have an entire tank of grandchildren. Sibao just takes after Liu a lot. Sweet, but not the smartest. Right? He sure was revitalizing the family. And hello, K Moment, you are a new name that I haven't seen before. Welcome. Liu Long jumped to conclusions again. I hope you are enjoying the stream. This team might turn into a whole platoon. When other people had children, they had 1 or 2. When he had children, he had 1 or 2 tanks. Prince Jane could afford that many fish babies, right? He wanted to assemble his fish army. Now that he'd experienced it once, Liu was very used to the idea of having children. Hello. He thought it was kind of fun. If he wanted more children in the future, he'd just tell Prince Jane to get busy. Wow. Though fish pregnancies didn't take long, it would take 9 months for the baby fish to grow into a human baby. Altogether, it wasn't much different from the gestational period of a human. The next step was for the baby fish to grow into humans. It was going to be a very important time. All right, hang on. I have an itch to look up what baby koi look like and see if it's what was described. Let me just close out my notifications real quick. Baby koi. Baby koi. Images. Oh my gosh, they kind of are see-through. Let me see. I think these tiny things are koi. Flicker, I don't need you to get in my way. I think the tiny things in there are baby koi. I could be wrong. It's focusing on the fish. I mean, this is probably like a little more developed baby koi. But they are kind of see-through. There. Now it's not being super bright. That's too... Anyway. That let's look up a picture kind of failed. That's cool. When fish are young enough, they are transparent. I raised some fish from eggs when I was younger, and you can see their organs and stuff. That's very cool, Mo Mars Rover. Okay. Prince Jing had asked someone to check, and they confirmed that all 4 fish babies were male. Now that their sex was confirmed, Prince Jing decided to name them. The next generation of the royal family needed to have names that contained the radical for heart. Prince Jing chose the 4 characters Kai, Xin, Wei, and Heng. So, Kai, Xin, Wei, and Heng all have the radical meaning heart. Liu couldn't tell the difference between the 4 at the moment, but Prince Jing could. He knew the order in which they had hatched, which is how he decided the order. I guess, yeah, it might depend on the kind of fish, but I feel like, I mean, the way they described it, that's what it sounded like. So. Now that their names were set and their order determined, Liu thought that that would be the end of it. But Prince Jing pulled out a thick stack of papers from his sleeve and stuffed it into Liu's arms. Royal children had to start learning a lot at a young age. They were at the western border now, so the conditions weren't as good as the palace, but Prince Jing would not deprive his children of anything. As soon as they could talk, Prince Jing was planning on asking for 2 of the best teachers in the capital to come teach them. Oh, wait, I skipped a part. Prince Jing chose their given names, so their nicknames were up to Liu. He came up with a few cute ones, but then considering he might have even more fish babies in the future, he decided to just call them Da Bao, Air Bao, San Bao, and Si Bao for convenience. So it's literally like baby 1, baby 2, baby 3, and baby 4. Prince Jing, the super dad. He so is. Their nicknames were enough while they were still baby fish. When they grew into humans, they could use the names Prince Jing decided for them. Prince Jing thought a lot when he was incubating the eggs and had written it all down, resulting in this stack of paper. He handed it all over to Liu to look over. Liu was taken aback. He'd assumed he'd be raising their fish babies like you raise regular fish babies. He had to teach them all this? Looking at Prince Jing's warlike determination, then looking at the 4 babies fighting for the egg yolk, Liu had a flashback to his painful student days. Would the fish babies be all right with a fish dad who never had good grades? Ahem. Should he tell Prince Jing that the babies couldn't be returned now that they'd already been shipped? As Liu flipped through the stack, he came across a piece of red paper. Wondered why there was a piece of paper here that was completely different from the rest. It was incredibly eye-catching. Was there something he needed to pay special attention to? Liu took a closer look and froze. Prince Jing had written an eternal happy union and stamped it with his official stamp. Your Highness, what is this? Liu looked at Prince Jing. Prince Jing was looking back at him too, with expectation in his eyes. His gaze was filled with so much emotion, Liu felt like he was about to be swept away. Prince Jing took out the jade figure and fish stone that he'd given Liu the other day that they had completed their union and placed them on the red paper. The jade figure was on the side with the stamp, but the side with the fish was empty. Liu's intuition had always been quite good. Red paper and a pair of keepsakes. This was what he thought it was, right? Your Highness, you... Face completely red, Liu asked excitedly, are you asking for my hand in marriage? He'd always thought he had a very sensible view on marriage, but now that it was his turn to be proposed to, he couldn't control the fireworks exploding in his chest. Prince Jing's handsome face was serious. Yes, I am. Before, he hadn't given Xiao Yu an official status because he was trying to protect him. But the situation developed faster than he'd planned for. He had children now. He could not let Xiao Yu or his children be the target of any criticism. He had written this marriage contract before they'd even left for the western border. This was his determination as the master of the house. As for the emperor's official approval, he would get it before the fish babies transformed. Very confident he is. I thought they already had like an impromptu marriage ceremony before they did the deed. Prince Jing, the super husband. Yeah, I swear they did the wine. They did the hair. Unless I'm thinking of a different ceremony. Did they do the hair thing? I might be thinking of my husband and I sleep in a coffin. But it wasn't official. Okay. So they did the Wang Xian thing. Got it. You read enough of these books and you mix everything up. They didn't do the hair thing. Okay. That was that one. Okay. Sorry, spoilers. All right. 86. Fish School. Thank you, Truffle, by the way. To be honest, I didn't think we'd get married so soon, Liu chuckled. Prince Jing was in a glum mood. He'd noticed long ago that Xiao Yu had never mentioned wanting an official title. Yao didn't care about such things. But why didn't Xiao Yu want to get married even after giving birth? The unease in Prince Jing's heart increased. He looked down at the marriage certificate, gripping it so hard his fingers turned white. Liu had never thought about being the prince's consort or the future empress. Oh, yeah. You're hoping we get to the letter argument this week. It's hilarious. It's either this week or next week. We'll see. If not, well, we will get to it this week because we have Thursday. So it should be there. Anyway. The unease in Prince Jing's heart increased. He looked down at the marriage contract, gripping it so hard his fingers turned white. Liu had never thought about being the prince's consort or the future empress. That was just the truth. He was still very young, so his hope for the future was just for a happy relationship and living each day to the fullest. Preach. It's a good way to live. He hadn't spared much thought to the idea of fighting for a title or status. Besides, back when he came from, men couldn't get married to each other, so Liu didn't see anything wrong with the way things were now. When was this book published? Hang on. I know it was written a while before that, too, and then got the copyright. So I guess that might have been before gay marriage became legal. But then also this is from Asia. That's a bigger thing. So, anyway. So Liu didn't see anything wrong with the way things were now. But when he picked up on the prince's deflated mood, he knew he had misspoken. He grabbed the marriage contract back and hurriedly tried to make up for his mistake. Although it's unexpected, I didn't say no. Prince Jing looked up at him with his dark eyes. For some reason, Liu detected a hint of a pout. His heart quivered. Was Prince Jing really pouting at him? Your Highness, don't be like this. I agree, Liu stuttered. Prince Jing remained unmoving, seeming even more pitiful. Liu's heart was a complete mushy mess. He hurriedly wrote down his own name in the empty spot on the contract. Other than his own signature, he also needed his stamp. But Liu didn't have one. Just as he was looking for an ink pad to stamp his fingerprint, Prince Jing pulled out a small square seal from his sleeve and handed it to Liu. Dude, I want his sleeves. His sleeves are like their own dimensional pocket or a Kyonkun sleeve. And I want it. Dude, I'd love a Cancun sleeve or Cancun pouch for like a convention. That would be the best prop. Like the best. What do you want for a convention? Forget bag of holding. I'll take a Cancun pouch where it's just. Yes, please. Can just strap it to my belt and go from there. Yes. Anyway, that ADHD kicking in. Sorry, hang on. Let me find my spot. It was made of crystal, and a small, lively golden fish was inlaid on the top. The stamp was Liu's name. Your Highness even had this prepared? Yeah. It needs to have like kind of like Hermione's magical purse where she just summons stuff. Like it needs to have that feature where like you just reach in, think about it, and it just pops into your hand like a magic trick. I'd so lose stuff in there still. I agree though, Truffle. Prince Jing nodded and gave the stamp to Liu. Liu immediately put the beautiful stamp to use. Then, he and Prince Jing each pressed a fingerprint down next to their stamps. Prince Jing is like Batman. The moment the fingerprints were printed onto the page, Liu's heart sped up. He thought of Yi Qinghuan and his wife and of all the couples in the village. Just like them, he now had his own family. In that moment, he wasn't hesitant or worried for the future. He felt the faint joy of settling down. He finally understood how wonderful it was to be married to your beloved. Prince Jing looked over the wedding contract. After confirming that everything was in order, he handed it over to Liu for safekeeping. Although the marriage of a prince was ultimately the emperor's decision, a handwritten contract counted on their own. This was enough to show the emperor how serious he was. Prince Jing handed Liu a note. Don't worry, I will take care of things with my father. I'm not worried. You don't have to rush, Your Highness. He really wasn't worried. He'd signed the marriage contract, so in the future, he would naturally be Prince Jing's consort and then the Empress. He didn't doubt Prince Jing's feelings towards him, but getting the Emperor to grant an official title to Liu, someone with no background, would not be easy. But Liu was optimistic. If the Emperor didn't allow it, he could just wait until after Prince Jing ascended to the throne. Your Highness, don't force it. If it doesn't work out, then just forget about it for a while. I can wait. It's okay. He was half reassuring him about his efforts and half reminding him that in the future he'd be allowed to do what he wanted. But Prince Jing shook his head. He'd always known Xiao Yu didn't care about all that. He would care in Xiao Yu's place. I have a plan. Prince Jing then didn't reveal anything further. Since he said so, Liu was filled with confidence and eagerly awaited the results. Now that Liu had signed the contract, Prince Jing asked Wang Shi to prepare for the wedding. It seemed a little rushed to drink their wedding wine the one time when they consummated, so Prince Jing wanted to give Liu an official wedding. Okay, so there we bring it back around. Got it. He'd already written his letter to the emperor to ask for his blessing, which was rushing to the capital at this very moment. Meanwhile, he was fervently preparing his plan. He was sure that by the time he received the emperor's response, he would be ready. Looks like we will get there, Truffle. Prince Jing would take care of everything. All Liu had to do was wait and focus on a more important mission: raising the fish babies. Prince Jing could help him incubate the eggs, but he could not help him educate the fish babies. As the only fish parent, he was the only one who could try to communicate with the little ones. After spending 2 whole days with the fish babies, Liu finally figured out who was who. Dabao's tail was a little longer. Erbao's stomach was very round, even when he didn't eat. Sanbao was the first to grow unusually colored scales, and Sibao was usually the most confused baby. Sweet baby, precious boy. I'm a little biased to Sibao, just because, like, he really is like his daddy. Simple but sweet. If all 4 babies were gathered together to eat, then the last one to arrive would definitely be Sibao. Although I am also very fond of Dabao. Dabao's got some extras. Erbao is very sweet. Sunbao is a little flamboyant, and I love that. And Sibao is just like precious baby boy. Liu started trying to talk to them as well as feed them. Aside from Sibao, the other babies were all quite smart. Very quickly, they learned how to say eat and swim. When Liu said eat, they would gather together to wait for food. When he said swim, they would follow behind Liu. Liu worried that as they swam, they would get lost, so he shook his tail gently in front of Dabao, then made a biting motion. The smart Dabao immediately bit down on his tail fin. Liu then taught Erbao to bite onto Dabao's fin, and so on and so forth. The fish babies formed a line so no one would get lost. This is totally giving like kindergartners lining up to go walk down like a 20-foot space of hallway. Like, not gonna lie. Three of the 4 babies very quickly formed a string with their dad. Only Sibao was still confused. Liu noticed that this baby was always a little slow to react, but he didn't say anything about it. He just nudged Sibao gently with his mouth and put him on his head. This way, all the babies could swim with him. Oh, I think that's where he got the idea. Probably. But now Dabao, holding onto his tail, was unhappy Sibao was getting preferential treatment. He and his 2 brothers let go and swam to face Liu. Should he be happy that these children already knew how to be jealous? He was finally getting to experience the hardships of being a father. He wasn't setting a good example by treating them unequally, so Liu nudged all of them onto his head. The fish babies waved their tails excitedly, copying him. It seemed they were all happy now. Liu continued to teach them how to speak. "Daddy," he demanded and demonstrated clearly. The fish babies stared at him, confused, not knowing what to do. Liu realized he was going about this in the wrong way. He thought about it, grabbed a peach blossom pastry, and then ripped it into small pieces. Circling the pastry, he tried again. "Daddy!" Children who could say it for him got a treat. The sweet, fragrant pastry attracted the baby's attention. Dabao tilted his head a little and tried. "Dad?" My thing about this is, like, with this teaching method, it's like, are you teaching them that you're dad, or are you teaching them that peach pastry is dad? Because, like, that's where a lot of the kids who are you doing this would go. Dabao was so smart. Liu wanted to clap for him. Who said fish were stupid? He rewarded Dabao with a piece of pastry. Dabao waved his tail happily and started eating in large bites. Erbao and Sanbao were both envious of Dabao's snack, so they imitated Dabao. Da? Liu thought they weren't completely wrong. It was a good first attempt. He rewarded the 2 of them as well to encourage them. The older brothers had all set a good example. Only Sibao was left. Liu nodded at Sibao gently. but Sibao looked dazed, as though he didn't understand. Liu wondered what was wrong when the fish baby began sinking. Liu rushed to catch Sibao, who seemed just as frightened as he was. Did he fall asleep? Liu was both irritated and amused. Who did this child take after? Oh, we know. We know exactly who this child took after. Daddy! Liu once again tried to teach Sibao, but Sibao still didn't know what to do. In response to his fish dad's instruction, he blew 2 small bubbles. No, he had to teach him how to say daddy! With Liu using the peach blossom pastry to tempt him, Sibao finally ended up just barely getting it right. Prince Jing came over to see his fish wife and sons. Liu was playing with the fish babies, leading them in a circle. Your Highness, our sons can say daddy now, he said excitedly. Prince Jing couldn't understand fish, so he just watched Liu swim around with a smile on his face. Liu wanted to try it again in front of his husband. He grabbed another piece of peach blossom pastry. That way, he could tell the fish babies that this tall, handsome man was their daddy too. He took out the pastry, but before he had a chance to say anything, the fish babies were already yelling out, Dad! With Da Bao in the lead, the 4 babies rushed happily towards the pastries. Yep, there it is. It seemed like the fish babies had misunderstood. That's what you get, man! There had originally only been 1 fish in Prince Jing's room. Now that there were 4 more little ones, people would definitely notice, so Prince Jing just told everyone that they were Xiao Yu's babies. That way, the fish babies didn't have to keep hiding. Prince Jing's fish was very large by now. There was nothing strange about him having children, so no one thought anything of it. No one even asked where the female fish was. Horses and dogs could be bred after all. Why not fish? Wang Shi liked Master Xiao Yu a lot. Now, with the addition of these tiny fish, Wang Shi was so happy he couldn't stop grinning. Prince Jing asked Wang Shi to ensure their safety and told him that this was now his top priority. Wang Shi understood immediately. Wang Gonggong had deduced the following. His Highness cared for Master Xiao Yu a lot, about the same amount as he cared for Li Gonzi. So the same could be said comparing these fish babies with Li Gonzi's personal son, right? Not to mention, if Li Gonzi really were to have a son, whose would it be? Like, he's so close. He's so close, but he just misses it. Wasn't the prince just subtly telling him that he had to treat these tiny fish as tiny masters? Wang Shi desperately wanted some little masters, so he carried out his order to the letter. He'd be such a great grandpa if he wasn't a eunuch. Well, like, even as a eunuch, he'd be a great grandpa, but he's kind of missing the part to make him a grandpa. He's already a good dad to Prince Jing. What am I talking about? Right? Wang Shi, very happy grandpa noises. Exactly. Back in the capital at Qianqing Palace, the emperor had been asking about the situation at the western border every few days, ever since Prince Jing had arrived there. He also read all the reports coming from the western border several times. He can be the honorary grandpa. Yeah. There had been an assassination attempt as soon as Prince Jing arrived, and the emperor was worried for his safety. Following the news, he had sent over many guards and imperial physicians, and had secretly ordered the generals at the border to help Prince Jing if he was ever in danger. The emperor was worried he had made a big mistake. It was fine if Prince Jing wasn't up to this test, but what if he couldn't even make it back? Speaking of Grandpa, right? The emperor spent several months living in suspense. But the physicians hadn't even arrived yet when he received a second report from the western border. A battle report. In his first battle against the bandits, Prince Jing had come out victorious. The report carefully detailed the reasons Prince Jing had decided to initiate the battle as well as his specific tactics. The Emperor was first furious over the bandits' wild disregard for order, then shocked by Prince Jing's cold-blooded decisiveness. The Emperor had sent many experienced soldiers in the past, but they had never been able to win. Prince Jing had no experience with real battle, but he had still had the guts to challenge the bandits. Not only that, but he had won. After being so worried for so long, the Emperor felt extreme joy. Prince Jing didn't disappoint him. He was capable of shouldering this heavy responsibility. Although the Emperor was happy, he wasn't going to reward Prince Jing too lavishly, in case he started getting arrogant. Yeah, he already learned his lesson about that one. He ordered head eunuch Luo to send a set of top-quality armor to the border, intending to continue watching to see what Prince Jing would do next. Privately, the Emperor was very proud of his son and ordered the Ministry of War to analyze the detailed battle report. When they simulated the battle on a miniature battlefield, even the Minister of War praised Prince Jing for his military command. The Emperor was extremely satisfied. Apart from the battle, Prince Jing had also mentioned a youth called Liu. Apparently, this youth had a wealth of knowledge and had helped out quite a lot. Prince Jing admitted that it was all thanks to this youth that he was able to win against the bandits. Prince Jing wanted to reward the youth for his contribution and was hoping that the Emperor would let him. The Emperor was happy. It was such a small thing. Did Prince Jing really need to ask him? With a wave of his brush, the Emperor allowed it. The capital was a long way from the western border, so it was incredibly difficult to communicate. It was a half-month later when the Emperor received Prince Jing's second and third message. The Emperor allowed Prince Jing to reward the youth, so in the next two messages, Prince Jing described exactly how he thought he might reward Liu. But at the end of each message, he concluded it still wasn't enough. The Emperor could tell that Prince Jing wanted to keep discussing this, but he had run out of patience. It felt like Prince Jing was being too careful. Since this Liu had made a great contribution, he told Prince Jing to consider things carefully and make the decision himself. A month later, the Emperor received Prince Jing's fourth message. The message said that after some careful consideration, he decided to reward Liu with marriage and the title of consort. Smart and cheeky bugger. Chapter 87. Fishy babies change color. Now, wait a minute here. Right? The Emperor was shocked. He was only meant to be rewarding a subordinate. How had they reached the idea of marriage? Prince Jing insisted on calling the marriage a reward, and the Emperor had told him to figure out the reward by himself. He had several messages as proof. Remembering how Prince Jing had asked several times, the Emperor realized Prince Jing had tricked him. He hadn't really been worried over the reward. He wanted to make the marriage happen from the start. Yeah, checkmate. After the initial shock subsided, the Emperor was furious. He was angry that Prince Jing dared to trick him, and also that Prince Jing chose a male consort. There was no ban on homosexuality in this dynasty, and past emperors had taken on male concubines, even showering them with affection. Even the emperor himself, curious about trying something new, had a male noble lady, or perhaps you should say male noble lord, when he was young. Politically, it was no big deal to have a male concubine, because they couldn't have children, but they also couldn't be one's official wife. If Prince Jing insisted on taking Liu as a concubine, perhaps the emperor would have let him. As a prince, Prince Jing was entitled to have one consort and two concubines. Merely becoming a concubine would be a great honor for a commoner like Liu, and everyone would be happy. But Prince Jing talked about the position of his consort in his letter, and that was the title he wanted to give to Liu. Of course the emperor wasn't happy with that. How could a man, especially a man with no background, become the official consort of a prince? If the emperor allowed this, it would be difficult for Prince Jing to take any young noble woman as concubines. After all, what young lady would be happy being in a lower position than a man who couldn't even bear children? And her own children would only ever be Xue children. So, for anyone that is a little confused about that statement, the Dai is like the consort's children, and Xue is the concubine's children. And it's very important that order. So, like the first wife children versus second wife children, Dai and Xue, or third wife children, Xue. So Prince Jing is Dai's son. The other princes are Xue's sons. So that matters. Very quickly, the emperor came up with a bunch of reasons to refuse. He didn't agree to this marriage. It was just a clever little trick Prince Jing had played. If the emperor could be convinced that easily, he wouldn't be the emperor. But he'd already officially given his approval, so he couldn't just take it back. The emperor thought about it and decided to just relay his response. He wouldn't say yes or no. If he didn't respond, Prince Jing wouldn't be able to proceed with the wedding. The emperor was quite vexed and disappointed with Prince Jing. He'd once spent a lot of time worrying about Prince Jing's marriage, but Prince Jing had seemed uninterested. Now that he finally wanted to get married, if it had been a woman who had caught his eye, the emperor would definitely have given his blessing. But Prince Jing wanted a male consort. He'd only just started being impressed with this son, and now he'd gone and done this. He's like, come on, man. Livid, the emperor decided to leave Prince Jing hanging so he could reflect on himself. He sent Prince Jing to the western border to test his abilities, not to recklessly seek a male wife. In a fit of anger, he summoned the former Duke of Chang'an, Prince Jing's grandfather, Yi Qian, to the palace to discuss the solution with him. Yi Qian had received a message from Prince Jing a while ago, and had met Li Yu even earlier. In the face of the emperor's anger, Yi Qian calmly and subtly persuaded him to relax. Prince Jing wanting a male wife had made the emperor realize it was finally time for Prince Jing to have his own family. It was improper not to have a woman by his side to take care of him. Perhaps he, the emperor, should find a woman to marry Prince Jing. Perhaps then he would stop thinking of this Li Yu. If he still wanted him, Li Yu could be a concubine. Wouldn't that be better than marrying a male consort directly? Not to him! Yi Qian understood what the emperor was thinking, so he asked purposefully, "Does your majesty already have someone in mind?" The emperor had no response. This wasn't the first or even the second time that the emperor had worried about Prince Jing's marriage. It was true that Prince Jing didn't really care, but it was also true that there wasn't anyone suitable. All the noble young ladies in the capital who were of similar status to Prince Jing had all tactfully communicated that they'd much rather be any other prince's consort. They had no interest in the mute Prince Jing. There were some of lower status who were willing, but they either had bad reputations, bad appearances, or had some sort of disability, just like Prince Jing. The emperor thought none of them suitable, so he'd never ended up appointing a marriage for Prince Jing. Was there no way for his son to find a normal wife? The emperor's temper flared up even more. He would find a suitable wife for Prince Jing, no matter what. He's already got one. You don't need to. It's okay. This servant has something to say that may not be appropriate, said Yi Qian. I've never seen His Highness Prince Jing ask your majesty for anything. His Highness isn't a reckless person, so he must have truly fallen in love. His Highness is different from other people. I think perhaps he truly values this person. But how could the emperor not have already realized this? Prince Jing had subtly praised this Li Yu several times in his messages. The emperor knew he was a good kid with a good character who had contributed a great deal to help Prince Jing. Otherwise, the emperor might have simply gotten rid of him. Harsh. That was why the emperor was so vexed. Prince Jing truly wasn't reckless at all. He'd planned this trick far in advance. Thinking about the way the prince had led him here step by step made him extremely annoyed. But somehow, each step was perfectly reasonable. He couldn't find any evidence of Prince Jing tricking him. All he could manage to accuse Prince Jing of was not thinking straight and treating marriage like a joke. How dare this brat anger him like this? Wasn't he afraid he'd leave him at the western border forever and never let him return to the capital? I don't think Prince Jing would care, honestly, at this point. He's like, I got my kids. I got my fish wife. Like, I'm good. Like, if that happened, I don't think he'd be terribly upset. He's away from the drama of the capital. Like, yeah, he's got bandits, and he could have a bigger estate, but, like, he'd make it work. He'd build a new pool for his fish husband and, like, make it work. Like, you can have Liu as a concubine as a treat. Prince Jing, no. Like, I honestly don't think he'd be that upset if you just left him there. The emperor knew that probably wouldn't be necessary. Prince Jing had just made a little error in judgment regarding his marriage. It was nothing compared to the second and third prince's mistakes. Besides, Prince Jing was now a prince with achievements under his belt. If he punished Prince Jing over this, his ministers would try to convince him against it. All he could do was scold Prince Jing in front of the old Duke of Cheng'an. Yi Qian was familiar with the emperor's temperament. If the emperor was angry with the prince, Yi Qian would just listen quietly, occasionally agreeing here or there without trying to convince the emperor of anything. After a while, the emperor grew bored. Empress Xiaohui had passed away many years ago, and the old Duke of Cheng'an was technically his father-in-law, an elder. It wasn't very proper to scold his son in front of his father-in-law. The emperor finally calmed down a little. Soon, Prince Jing's next letter arrived. It had only been a few days since he'd decided to ignore Prince Jing's last letter. Prince Jing couldn't know yet that he was avoiding responding, and the emperor assumed this message must be unrelated. The emperor skimmed over it. It contained another suggestion from Liu. Aside from the bandits, the emperor had another concern. There were a few villages on the western border that suffered from locusts every year or two. The western border was often rife with battle, and there was barely any farmland. If there was a locust infestation, the villagers would have to go hungry and possibly even become homeless. The emperor was worried that the locust problem would get worse and worse. At first, the locusts only appeared there at the very border, but in the past 2 years they had begun to spread. Every year, the emperor allocated a lot of money towards controlling the locust, but they were never truly eradicated. It seemed unlikely that this youth could prove more useful than the experienced officials in the Ministry of Works. But it was this youth who had helped Prince Jing defeat the bandits. The emperor was curious. He knew Prince Jing was just trying to promote Liu, but he couldn't help it. He read on. The babies that Liu had given birth to were now a month old. Under Prince Jing's attentive care, their bodies started to change. They had once all been nearly transparent, but now 3 out of the 4 had the colorful scales of a koi. Da Bao was a majestic fish covered in gold scales. Air Bao had a gold base with flecks of silver, the opposite of Liu, who was silver with flecks of gold. San Bao was the prettiest, silver from head to toe. From a distance, his scales looked like tiny, dazzling pearls. Gold and silver were all colors Liu had on his body. At first, since the fish babies hadn't grown gold or silver scales, Liu thought they wouldn't turn into koi. After all, his own koi status had been achieved through completing tasks. He wasn't born with it, so it shouldn't be passed down to the babies. But unexpectedly, after a month, the fish babies each had their own colors. The koi appearance could be passed down after all. They just needed to grow more. Of the 4 babies, Dabao, Airbao, and Sanbao had all changed colors. Only Sibao still looked the same. Liu was, of course, worried. Sibao often had a hard time keeping up with the others. Would it be the same for growing scales? Could there be such a large difference between fish from the same clutch? The fish babies still didn't quite know how to talk, only knowing a few simple words, so Liu still didn't know what Sibao was thinking. Dabao, Airbao, and Sanbao slowly started to look more and more like koi, and after another half month, Sibao finally started to change too. Liu had waited for this day for so long. But Sibao's scales were not gold or silver of his brothers, they were grayish black. He had grown into a regular small black fish, similar to how Liu had looked when he had first transmigrated. Why was the difference so huge, even though they were part of the same clutch of eggs? He's like his daddy. What do you want? Sibao seemed to realize that he was different and got a little dejected that he wasn't turning into a koi like the rest of his brothers. When Liu saw this, he immediately put the little black fish on his head, spinning around in circles to cheer him up. No matter if Sibao turns into a koi or not, Daddy loves you. Before, whenever Liu heard people say things like this, it would make him shudder. But now he said it to his fish baby without any hesitation, and Sibao quickly perked up with his father's encouragement. After that, Liu transformed into a human and put the babies into a crystal bottle to visit Prince Jing. They are such an adorable fish family, I agree. As long as his brothers left him alone, he'd be fine. Honestly, yes. But they can't just leave it alone! Just gotta keep poking him, huh? Prince Jing was working at the moment. Every day, Liu would take the fish babies with him to visit their other dad. Although they all spent every evening with each other in the same room, Liu was still very diligent about developing the relationship between the fish babies and Prince Jing. As soon as Prince Jing saw them, he set down his brush. Prince Jing was very happy when he realized Sibao had turned into a small black fish. Sibao's personality was a little like Liu's. Now that he looked even more like Liu used to, Prince Jing liked him even more. So cute. Liu put the crystal bottle on the desk and sat down to keep Prince Jing company while he read some reports. There was too much useless writing in the reports, and it was all in ancient Chinese. One word was written particularly messily. Liu struggled to read it for a while, but he wasn't able to figure it out, and he fell asleep again. He had a tendency to fall asleep while reading. As he kept nodding off, the fish babies in the crystal bottle started to bob up and down with the movement of his sleepy head. That sounds so cute. Oh wow, we're getting there. Too distracting. Prince Jing glanced at the fish babies in the bottle and made a shushing motion. The fish babies all stopped moving. They pressed against the crystal, staring back at him with wide eyes. Prince Jing took off his outer robe and wrapped it around the sleeping Liu and himself, creating a soft, warm space just for them. Holding Liu gently, he kissed him on his lips. He'd already sent the message asking the Emperor to give Liu an official title. The plan was in motion. Now, they just had to wait. After watching the robe covering his dad's rustle for a while, Da Bao turned around. Without knowing why, Airbao and Sanbao followed his example and turned around too. Sibao knew he was a little slower, but following Da Bao was always the right move, so half a beat later, Sibao also turned around. But he kept looking back curiously at his father's. Liu had fallen asleep because he couldn't recognize a specific word. After a brief nap, his brain felt a little clearer and he suddenly remembered what it meant. It was the word locust, followed by the word disaster. A locust disaster. Liu was suddenly wide awake. Your Highness, have locusts appeared somewhere? This was a serious situation. Locusts ate a wide variety of crops and had a tendency to start swarming. When a swarm of locusts flew past, all the crops the farmers had carefully taken care of for the whole year would vanish into the mouths of these pests. Prince Jing told Liu about the locusts that had been spotted in a village near the western border. Liu's expression changed. Prince Jing misunderstood and thought he was afraid. He showed Liu a map of the western border and pointed out Luofeng village. Luofeng village was still very far from where the locusts appeared. They were definitely safe. Prince Jing comforted Liu. Don't be afraid. As long as he was there, he would protect Liu and the children. Liu looked up at him. No, Your Highness, I'm not frightened. I want to help the villagers and try to stop the infestation. This title's funny. I'm going to take a quick drink, but the title is Duck, Duck, Fish. Chapter 88, Duck, Duck, Fish. I'm also going to blow my nose real quick. Hang on. Duck, duck, fish. Prince Jing trusted Liu wholeheartedly, but solving the issue of locusts was no trivial matter. Prince Jing paused, holding Liu's hand in his. His gaze was worried, as though asking him, "Are you sure?" Liu giggled. "Of course. But the method isn't very dignified." Prince Jing didn't care about dignity. When it came to getting rid of the locusts, he was more worried about Liu's safety. Usually, people got rid of locusts by burning them with fire. Although it was very effective at getting rid of many locusts at once, being so close to fire was very dangerous. Xiao Yu was a carp spirit. He probably feared fire, right? I could see why, if that was the case, but Xiao Yu being special. Oh. Liu saw his hesitation. Don't worry, Your Highness. I won't go myself. There wasn't a chance he'd be doing any of this in person. Sub, don't treat him like an all-powerful Yao. He's just a fish with a system who is very afraid of bugs. Oh, of course he's afraid of bugs. Alright, that's another sob. So we are actually up to 8, with 4 of them coming from just tonight. Prince Jing observed Liu. Seeing that he wasn't joking, he finally nodded, letting him give it a go. Liu borrowed a brush and paper, then wrote a few lines down. It just so happened that right before he transmigrated, several countries in Liu's previous world had been suffering from locusts, and his country had lent a helping hand. He'd been curious at the time, and so he'd done some cursory research on how to control locusts. Although he couldn't remember everything, he remembered a few things because he thought it was interesting. He wrote them down. Deep plowing, choosing crops, and a duck army. And yes, I said that correctly. A duck, quack quack, army. Prince Jing had no idea what these phrases meant. Liu tried his best to explain, in a way that could be understood by people in ancient times. The duck army! Yeah, you like where this is going. Locust eggs are usually laid in the dirt. When plowing, if we dig a little deeper, the eggs will be exposed to the sunlight and they will be scorched by the sun. For the next step, locusts don't eat everything. So if we plant only crops that locusts don't eat, they will have way less food. Then they won't be able to cause as much havoc. Prince Jing was an intelligent man. He immediately understood. Both these points made sense. His gaze then landed on the third point. What was the duck army? Was it the kind of duck he was thinking of? Your Highness, it's exactly what you think, Liu blinked. Everything has a weakness. Ducks eat locusts. The first two methods are too late to use for the areas that have already been infected, but you can gather some ducks to take care of those regions. This is what's called a duck army. Prince Jing furrowed his brow. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he'd never heard of any of these things that Xiao Yu mentioned, especially not the duck army. But what he said seemed to make sense, and fire wasn't involved either, so it would be much less dangerous. Prince Jing nodded slowly. There were a few families who owned ducks in Lufeng village, but not many. They were either used for selling or eating. Prince Jing ordered Wang Shi to buy a few. They had to try it out and see for themselves whether ducks ate locusts. Wang Shi volunteered himself for this job. The next day, he left before the sky even lightened. Not even an hour later, he came running back and said in an excited voice, Your Highness, it really works! This old servant saw with his own eyes that as soon as the ducks showed up, they ate plenty of locusts. They ate the whole time. I was there without even stopping. He was in such a rush to get back and report this that he nearly lost his shoe on the way. I love that image. According to Wang Shi, one duck could eat around 100 locusts in one shot. Prince Jing did some rush calculations and his excitement grew uncontrollably. If he sent a report to the emperor first and waited for the Ministry of Works to give him the funds to buy the ducks, the situation might get a lot worse. Prince Jing needed to strike immediately, so he ordered Wang Shi to use his own money to purchase all the ducks in the western border. If that wasn't enough, they could send someone to the other nearby countries. There you go. Liu had another idea. Your Highness, don't just buy the fully grown ones. Buy some ducklings as well, and we can start a duck farm. Ducks grow fast, so they'll soon be able to help with clearing the locusts too. Prince Jing thought about it, decided it was a good idea, and ordered Wang Shi to go ahead. A single duck wasn't expensive, and Prince Jing had plenty of money. The people of Lufeng village were all grateful to Prince Jing for defeating the bandits. When they found out he was looking to buy ducks, they all brought their ducks over, and many of them refused to accept money. Several nearby countries heard that Prince Jing was buying ducks to control the locusts, and out of curiosity, they sent flock after flock. Prince Jing ordered guards to be stationed along the way to ensure the villagers' safety, as well as to prevent any looting bandits. But when the bandits heard that Prince Jing planned on eradicating the locusts, they were eager to see him fail, and they lost interest in stealing ducks for the time being. I mean, kind of a dick move in what they're thinking, but yay, it worked out because they're not stealing the ducks. Kind of like, all right, fine, I guess. The reasoning behind it's well, thanks, I guess. But yeah, it worked out. In no time at all, Wang Shi was able to gather 5,000 live ducks and over 1,000 ducklings. That is ridiculous. I always forget how big the duck army is, and it's 5,000 live ducks and over 1,000 ducklings. I cannot imagine how many ducks that is. Well, I can, because it's that big, but what that actually looks like is ridiculous. That's so many ducks, right? The ducklings needed to be fed, so the ducks were gathered together into a duck army and sent off loudly to the most affected village. Prince Jing headed over himself. After just a day, they had made encouraging progress. The duck army could really eat. A small group of ducks was able to clean out nearly all the locusts in an acre of land in just half a day. What previously frustrated the villagers was the locusts didn't live for very long. Even if they burned all the locusts around them, another wave would quickly replace it, and there was danger of the fire spreading. Now, they didn't have to worry at all. The ducks could keep eating for days on end, and there was no other risks. There was also very little loss. By the time an entire village was taken care of, they had lost less than 10% of the ducks. It is insanely effective. Yes. But Wang Shi ran into a problem during his second round of duck purchasing. He noticed that once it got around that they needed ducks, some merchants had been purchasing them at cheap prices from local farmers in advance and selling them to him for a higher price. So here's the duck army. Ah! They are gazing out upon the field of ducks. Being, yes, this is my field of ducks. It works. They actually use this in modern day China or other places affected by the gaze upon my field of ducks. Oh my god, that reminds me of the joke. Look upon my field of ducks, for it is barren. There's that phrase, so makes me laugh. Gaze upon my field of ducks. So close. But anyway, Wang Shi couldn't be more furious. When he reported it to Prince Jing, Liu was bewildered. After all, stocking up on food and water was understandable. Who stocked up on ducks? Besides, couldn't they grow a brain? Prince Jing was purchasing ducks to help alleviate the locust situation. How could someone try to make a profit off a plague? There will always be scummy businessmen, my friend. That's how. If the locusts ate all the crops, where would they get food? An opportunity to make 3 times the profit was enough for them to forfeit their life, huh? Some people, yes. Yes, it is. I'm thinking of you, Labubu Craze. Labubu and Lafufu. We had this with the other book, the Labubu and Lafufu Craze. They deserve the Lafufus. Those people who are scalping prices. Prince Jing was prepared. He gave Wang Shi a glance, ordering him to make a record of who was doing this. Those duck scalpers could keep on stocking up. There was no need to pay them any mind. This time, Wang Shi wasn't able to get very many ducks and was worried he was causing a delay. Prince Jing, however, was unruffled. He looked at Liu. We could buy chickens too, right? Chickens are fine too, but they don't eat as much as ducks. Liu nodded repeatedly. His Highness knew about this as well. I was just thinking, I hope there's an illustration. That's fantastic. Yep. How could they not illustrate the duck army, right? Prince Jing just wanted anything that would eat locusts, so he ordered Wang Shi to buy some chickens. Meanwhile, the duck farm that Liu had asked for was ready. He hired a few brave people to raise the ducks. With locusts as feed, the ducklings grew quickly. Just as the duck army was starting to run short, the ducklings grew up to fill the ranks. Not to mention, the duck army laid plenty of eggs. He was delighted. It's a good thing your highness bought a lot the first time. Now we can replenish the ducks. They know what their audience wants. Yup. These days, Wang Shi, the head eunuch of a prince's manor, was busy buying chickens and ducks and hatching eggs. Prince Jing smiled confidently and took over. His Highness was very experienced in egg incubation. He is a very proud papa. Unashamedly, very proud papa. As for the people who were hoarding ducks, they never managed to get Prince Jing to purchase them, and eventually they couldn't afford to keep storing them. Ducks were livestock. Unlike grain, they couldn't just be stored in a warehouse. They had to be fed and taken care of. If they weren't careful, the ducks died or escaped. Seeing as Prince Jing was no longer buying any more ducks, the merchants were dumbfounded. What were they gonna do with all these ducks? Who else but Prince Jing could afford such a vast quantity of ducks here on the western border? Hongxi, proud parent of all species. He is. These people were afraid of not making their money back, so they personally went to apologize to Wang Shi. With Prince Jing's reminder, Wang Shi stood with his back ramrod straight and haggled the price down again and again, nearly grinding the merchants down to their bones. In the end, he only agreed to buy the ducks at a price way lower than market value. That's what you get. The duck army and duck farm were both running smoothly now. Liu had gone to the duck farm before and taken a look everywhere. With his modern sensibilities, he suggested a lot of improvements. He thought the ducklings in the farm were all adorable too. On a whim, he bought two yellow ducklings and started taking care of them at home. When the fish babies saw the new and exciting ducklings, they were overcome with excitement, just like their fish dad. The crystal bottle almost couldn't contain them. All 4 babies, even Sibao, the poor thing, were jumping up and down excitedly. Liu was afraid the ducklings would eat the fish, so he refused to let them get close. He only let the babies look from a distance. Sibao really liked the beautiful ducklings. Once, when Liu was taking his afternoon nap, he snuck out of the crystal bottle to go play with the ducks. The afternoon nap was a habit Liu had picked up on after giving birth. Apparently, sleeping a lot as a child led to good development, so Liu wanted the fish babies to sleep more. Every day, when the time came, he'd take a nap with the fish babies. But the fish babies were all lively and liked to move around. Before Liu fell asleep, they would get into the fish blanket with him. Once Liu had drifted off, though, they'd dart out from the blanket and play on their own. Oh, they're tricky. That was how Sibao came to leap out of the crystal bottle. Luckily, Prince Jing had the foresight to spread a thick carpet onto the ground just in case. Sibao wasn't injured from the landing, but he was just a small palm-sized fish. He completely forgot that it would be hard for him to get anywhere after he left the crystal bottle and fish tank. Soon after landing, he started to feel uncomfortable. Dabao, Airbao, and Sanbao all swam to the edge of the crystal bottle, worriedly looking down at Sibao as he struggled. Their brother was in danger! Dabao jumped out without hesitation, and Airbao and Sanbao followed. They all wanted to save Sibao. But now all 4 fish babies were flopping around on the ground instead of just Sibao. Liu had only slept for a little while. Every so often, he had to wake up and check on the fish babies. Almost immediately, he realized all 4 of them had jumped out of the bottle. Liu was scared nearly half to death and hurriedly gathered them all back inside. Sibao was terrified. He stuck closely to Liu, who was both angry and worried. It was hard for him to blame this worrisome, confused baby, so he fed Sibao some fish food to distract him. But even while he was eating, Sibao continued to cling to him. Aw, sweet baby. Liu wanted to know what was up with Sibao, so he tried to get him to speak. Sibao spoke a little unclearly. Daddy, want duckies! Liu figured out that Sibao ended up on the floor because he wanted to see the ducks. Why did Sibao like ducks so much? Liu thought about it a bit, then took Sibao to see the adult ducks with a mischievous smile on his face. After seeing the big ducks with their bigger beaks and longer and bendier necks, as well as their much larger size, Sibao burst into tears when he thought about the small, fuzzy ducklings. Now that he'd teased Sibao, Liu went to tease Dabao. Dabao had failed to save his younger brother, and the attempt resulted in him and his brothers all on the floor. Dabao knew he'd made a mistake. As soon as Liu approached him, he apologized on his own. Dad, I'm sorry. Liu, who also liked exploring, asked, Oh, can you tell Dad what you did wrong? I wasn't strong enough to bring back my brothers. Dabao was a little downtrodden and embarrassed. What? Hello, son. please wake up. Your mistake wasn't that you weren't strong enough. Da Bao, unaware of his father's complaints, said sincerely, I want to become the strongest fish to protect my brothers and you, Dad. Liu felt like he could almost see Da Bao's determination. Seriously, they were all born from the same clutch, but Sibao couldn't even speak properly while Da Bao was already announcing his aspirations. Da Bao, you're a good kid. Liu patted him comfortingly with a fin. But you have to know your own strength. Da Bao was confused. What did know your own strength mean? Liu taught him. It means Da Bao can only protect his fathers and brothers after he grows up. Da Bao nodded, only half understanding. Then Da Bao wants to grow up quickly. Oh my god, they're so precious. Jeez, it was a bit over the top, but why did he feel warm all over from Da Bao's words? Because it's cute. That's why. It's cute. Thanks to the hard work of the Duck Army, the locust disaster had been brought under control. Although a few areas were facing repeat infestations, with the Duck Army at its current power, the locusts would soon be taken care of. Although they had got the locusts under control this year, that didn't mean they'd be able to just relax in the future. Locusts were hard to deal with because they always came back. But now that they knew how to deal with it, it wasn't a big deal if they returned. All the villagers along the western border who could afford a few ducks now kept ducks. Ducks were quite a valuable thing. Not only could they be sold for money, they could be eaten, and they could get rid of locusts. But in the end, the issue of where to store the duck army, fat from their locust feasts, became a headache. Liu's eyes went bright at all the ducks. Remembering something, he started to drool a little and said to Prince Jing, Your Highness, let's eat roast duck. Prince Jing had eaten the smashed cucumbers Liu had made himself without batting an eye. Roast duck was nothing. Prince Jing nodded, and the western border, was open. So a quadjude is a famous long-standing Peking duck restaurant from Beijing. That's funny. All right, I think this is our final chapter for tonight. Yes, 89, Stuffed Fish. The locusts would be completely exterminated any day now. Prince Jing had already presented Liu's idea to the emperor in his letters. They were on their way to the capital. Now, he wrote a more detailed report on the status of the locusts at each village. In his last letter, he had mentioned his marriage to Liu, but the emperor hadn't responded. So Prince Jing knew he was just letting it sit. Before he made his request clear, he had already revealed plenty of Xiaoyu's good points, and he had taken advantage of the emperor's good mood. The emperor hadn't denied his request outright, which meant he was still thinking about it. So, if he sent this letter over, the emperor would surely be swayed. Of course, he couldn't reveal Xiaoyu's true identity, but he hoped just this letter would be enough for the emperor to see how good Xiaoyu was. Even if he didn't have a distinguished background, even if he couldn't bear children, he was more than qualified to stand at his side as his consort. He'd never asked the emperor for anything in his life. He could fight for the spot of crown prince with his own abilities. He didn't need to ask for that. The only thing he wanted was this marriage. He had considered whether this would anger the emperor, whether this would completely put an end to his bid for the throne, but if that was the case... Prince Jing glanced at Liu, who was teaching the babies how to play tug-of-war. Although the western border was desolate, he had already had some of the happiest times of his life here, living together as a family of 6. There you go. Right there. We have our answer. If the emperor really chose to give up on him, then he would ask to stay at the western border forever. That way, he and Xiaoyu could still be together. But that was the worst-case scenario. It wouldn't get to that point. He had other tricks up his sleeve. Right? In the end, Prince Jing sent their marriage contract in the letter to the emperor. When the emperor received Prince Jing's next letter, he noticed that it came with a marriage contract. The emperor was very unhappy with Prince Jing for deciding on this without consulting him first. But at the same time, the emperor understood that Prince Jing had sent the marriage certificate because he was making his position clear. This was a silent plea. In his memory, Prince Jing had never asked him for anything. Even when the emperor had sent him to the western border immediately after receiving Prince Jing's birthday gifts, the prince hadn't asked for any leniency. He'd just accepted, bowed in farewell, and left the capital. Prince Jing had a cold personality, and that was how the emperor expected him to behave. But now, he realized that Prince Jing had a stubborn side. To an emperor, stubbornness wasn't a good thing. But who didn't have something that they were stubborn about? The emperor wasn't perfect either. I love that he accepts that even he isn't perfect. The emperor could tell the words, "an eternal happy union," were written in Prince Jing's handwriting. This was a marriage contract Prince Jing himself had written. It was clear how seriously he took this marriage. Prince Jing might really be in love. He thought back to the true love the old Duke of Chang'an had jokingly mentioned. The emperor had been on the throne for many years, and he could just laugh it off, but now his heart felt inexplicably heavy. He put the marriage contract away in his report box, then opened Prince Jing's letter. It was probably full of praise for Liu. Last time, the youth had suggested many unique ideas for controlling the locusts. The emperor had asked officials from the Ministry of Works to take a look. They all said the suggestions made sense and that they should be tried if the chance arose. The emperor didn't say anything, but in his heart he respected Liu. Gaining the approval of the Ministry of Works meant he was capable. So what did the letter contain this time? When the emperor was done reading the letter, he found that Prince Jing had already used Liu's suggestions against the locusts in the western border. If this task was given to any of the officials in the Ministry of Works, they would have to come up with a detailed plan and have the Ministry of Works approve it. After discussing it in court, they would have to wait for the Ministry of Revenue to provide the money. But doing so would take months. Only once all the bureaucracy was out of the way could the Ministry of Works send someone to affected areas. But Prince Jing never mentioned any of this in his reports. He just spent his own money and got it done. Not only that, he'd done a good job. The locusts in the western border had been taken care of. Damn insolent brat. The emperor couldn't decide what he was feeling. Was Prince Jing throwing his achievements in his face because he hadn't responded to his last letter? He was a little angry, but honestly, he couldn't deny that Prince Jing had done a beautiful job. After all, out of all of his sons, the one who was most decisive, the one most to his liking, was Prince Jing. The locust issue at the western border had been bad enough that it caused him unease. If he had followed normal procedure, who knew what the situation would be like by now? Yeah, he really did cut through all the red tape, and I also appreciate that about him. He was like, nope, that would take too long. Here's my money bag. Go buy some ducks. We're getting this shit locked down now. The officials strictly followed the rules and regulations, and while they deliberated, the people suffered. In comparison, Prince Jing was a little more rash, but he had controlled the locusts effectively. The emperor put down the letter, deep in thought. When he looked up again, he noticed there were a few reports from countries around the western border. Skimming through them, the emperor found out that Prince Jing had bought a large number of ducks to control the locusts, causing quite a stir in those countries. But all of them were grateful to Prince Jing. If the locust problem hadn't been solved, it would be their turn to suffer in the future. One of the reports was quite descriptive. The emperor could almost see the ducks flapping chaotically about in front of him. He smiled. Somehow, sending Prince Jing to the western border had allowed him to gain power. He hadn't expected it would turn out that way. He could allow Prince Jing to continue growing due to his achievements, or he could choose to punish him for tricking him. Choosing such an impossible candidate for his wife still made the emperor incredibly displeased. The emperor suddenly remembered something and flipped to the end of Prince Jing's letter. As expected, Prince Jing credited all the success to Liu. He is such a simp. All of this had been to pave the way for Liu. Whoop, my headband's falling off. 1 second. I could just take off my glasses. That would probably be easier. That's not straight at all, is it? Good enough. Whatever. I don't care. It's on. Even though he couldn't just ask, the emperor wanted to know what the prince would choose. The position of crown prince or his consort. His consort! Hands down. Consort. The emperor sighed and once again didn't respond to the letter. Prince Jing's actions on the western border weren't a secret. News had long since spread throughout the court. At first, when they found out Prince Jing had been sent to the western border, many of the officials thought the prince had somehow offended the emperor. But the sixth prince started to worry. Prince Jing had clearly won during the emperor's birthday banquet. If the emperor was truly angry with him, why hadn't he scolded him in front of everyone? And the house of Chang'an, the Duke of Chang'an and Yi Qinghuan were all on Prince Jing's side. They were Prince Jing's biggest backers. But Prince Jing had already left the capital, and none of them had tried to ask the emperor for forgiveness. That meant Prince Jing had probably warned them in advance. Mu Tianxiao still couldn't work out why the emperor had sent Prince Jing to the border. But soon, the unease he felt was smoothed out by the emperor. Due to the nursery rhymes and fake monks, the emperor had the third and sixth princes beaten and punished. The emperor's punishment for the third prince was truly harsh, but he'd only been angry with the sixth prince by association. Even so, accordingly, he'd taken away the sixth prince's job. In order to regain the emperor's trust, Mu Tianxiao had made many preparations. In the end, his hard work paid off, and after Prince Jing left, the emperor had given him Prince Jing's job at the Ministry of Works. Why does it look like I've got another picture? I do not. It's just getting to the end of the chapter. Okay. Prince Jing had completed most of the job already, so all the sixth prince had to do was to clean up the loose ends. The emperor had even appointed a deputy minister to guide him. There was no way anything could go wrong. He'd basically been given a free achievement. Although the Ministry of Works was the least respected of the six ministries in fixing Zhang Shui Palace wasn't a very dignified job. At the very least, it was clear the emperor held the sixth prince, who was here by his side, in higher regard than Prince Jing, who was thousands of miles away. Nope. Mu Tianxiao made up his mind. Prince Jing was mute, after all, and the western border was full of strife and turmoil. If he did a little something at just the right time, perhaps he could get rid of Prince Jing for good. But he'd only just regained the emperor's trust. He couldn't act recklessly. He'd simply watch and observe Prince Jing. Maybe he wouldn't have to do anything. Maybe Prince Jing would mess up and die, getting rid of himself. Then, instead of dying quietly, Prince Jing killed the bandits. Several ministers praised him vocally, and the emperor was in a great mood. Now, whatever achievements the sixth prince had gained through fixing Zhang Shui palace were insignificant. An official who was a secret supporter of the Sixth Prince mentioned his work during court, but very quickly he was drowned out by praise for Prince Jing. That was when Mu Tianxiao fully realized that despite being at the distant border, Prince Jing was still his enemy. Now he was hearing Prince Jing had managed to eradicate the locusts on the western border. The emperor should have been happy and heavily rewarded Prince Jing, but this time, when the officials praised Prince Jing, the emperor seemed somewhat displeased. Mu Tianxiao picked up on this and sent someone to Qiansheng Palace in Prince Jing's manor to see what was going on. That was when he discovered a great secret. Prince Jing had fallen in love with a youth at the western border and dared to ask the emperor for permission to marry him. Prince Jing was mute, and he might pass that along to his children. If he also got married to a male consort who couldn't bear his children. All of this was great news to the Sixth Prince. If Mu Tianxiao had dreamt this, he'd wake himself up laughing. When he found out how much of a headache this was for the emperor, Mu Tianxiao decided he had to do everything in his power to make this happen. He knew that the emperor still had regrets about Empress Xiaohuai, so he asked his mother, Consort Shang, to speak up. Recently, the emperor had picked the daughter of a marquise for the Sixth Prince to marry. Consort Shang went to thank the emperor, and she took the opportunity to start reminiscing about Empress Xiaohuai. Consort Shang had once been Empress Xiaohuai's servant, so she was deeply grateful to the empress for her current life. While she spoke about Empress Xiaohuai, she accidentally mentioned that the empress had always wished for Prince Jing to lead a safe and happy life. She said that on purpose, of course, but it got the emperor thinking. It was rare for Consort Shang to say such things, considering her status, and she said it with such sincerity. It was quite believable. Adding this on top of all the praise Prince Jing had heaped upon Liu in his letters. When he returned to Qiansheng Palace, the emperor sat himself for 2 hours, deep in thought. In the end, he finally wrote down his response to Prince Jing. Liu's character is worthy of the title of consort, but unfortunately, due to the fact that he is a man and cannot bear children, he can only be given the position of concubine. When Liu found out about this, he ran to comfort Prince Jing. At least the emperor had agreed to the two of them staying together. They had a long future ahead of them. Perhaps, if he acquired more achievements, the emperor might promote him to consort in a fit of joy. When Prince Jing received the emperor's reply, he smiled. After all his planning, this was the exact response he'd been waiting for. As long as the only reason the emperor gave was that Liu couldn't bear children, then all his problems would be solved. Liu had already given him 4 fishy sons. Considering how long it would take them to transform, now was the exact right time to announce the pregnancy. Originally, Prince Jing had planned to invent a non-existent concubine and say the children were hers. Once he had children, it would be far easier to convince the emperor. But firstly, he was afraid this ruse would fall apart as soon as Liu had more children, and secondly, he was afraid the emperor would still refuse because Liu still couldn't give birth. Why did he have to invent a whole other person? He could just say Xiaoyu was special and could give birth. Even if no one else had heard of such a thing, it didn't mean it couldn't exist. Although it was a little unbelievable, there would be proof once the fish babies transformed. Yeah, you literally are making it for the end. I am on the last 4 paragraphs, Spur Lady. But welcome. As the emperor had clearly said, due to the fact that he is a man and cannot bear children, he wouldn't be able to refute himself. There were many inconveniences on the western border, but there was one thing that was very convenient indeed. As long as he said Li Gonzi was pregnant, no one would be able to question it. If the emperor sent a gynecological expert, by the time they arrived at the border, the fish babies would have already been born, turning into human children. The reason why he hadn't mentioned this at the very beginning was because he was afraid the Emperor would choose a different reason to deny him. Prince Jing had taken step after careful step, slowly dispelling any hesitations he might have towards Xiao Yu, just so that only this one reason remained. Although it was a little difficult, he could deal with it. Prince Jing put a hand on Liu's stomach and patted it. It was about time to stuff a little pillow inside. And that is the end of chapter 89, and where we will be leaving it for tonight. And yes, the trap has been sprung. Ooh, I will give you a little teaser for next week. Sneaky, sneaky. Chapter 90, which is where we will start next week. Its title is Fishy Babies Transform. So you have that to look forward to on Thursday. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed tonight's live stream. It was a lot of fun. The duck army was hilarious. Ooh, so exciting. Yes, very exciting, Esper Lady. And they were very great chapters. I think you will enjoy watching this later, Esper Lady. And thank you. I'm glad you had a super great fun and that it was great. I will be doing the next few chapters, 90 to 90 through 95 on Thursday. Yes. It was a fun one. Good night, everyone. But yeah, look forward to that. I hope you have a good day and a half between then. And I will see you then. Good night. I gotta lean down for this because I have it widescreen right now. Good night. Bye.